Hello, this is John Ramsey with My Big Comeback. I've got a very special guest with us today, Matthew Goldhagen. He's an attorney here in Panama City. Matthew, good to have you, man. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having
Tell
me.
me a little bit about the law you serve and what you do with law.
Yeah, so I'm a principal member and along with my wife of Goldhagen Law here in Panama City. We came here about 2020, end of 2019, and started practicing in this area after school. I do generally civil litigation. You know, I call it street law because
Street law.
people come in off the streets and they've got a question, a dispute of some sort. Nothing.
A lot
you
of
know,
contract law.
A lot of day-to-day life.
Yeah.
A lot of day-to-day life comes into our office, and
what does your wife do? What does she?
she does criminal defense.
Criminal defense.
She likes to focus on DUI defense, so
Yeah.
that's what her main goal in doing it. Of course, everything else she does general criminal defense, but DUI is what she likes to do the best.
Yeah. So where'd you move from?
Well, I grew up in New York. I was military for a long time, and kind of made my way down through the military down south through Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, up in Columbus, Georgia.
What branch of service were you in?
I was Army.
Army. All right.
Yep. And then did 10 years on active duty, and then went to the National Guard. Ended up deploying with a Florida National Guard unit, and they convinced me to move all my stuff into Florida. I went to Florida State, graduated law school from there, and then ended up here in Panama City.
So you were already serving in the military when you decided to study law.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. I was.
What inspired you to make that jump?
A plethora of a few things. I mean, you know, if we're being fair and honest, I did not have the most clean-cut childhood and
Yeah.
adolescence, and
Yeah.
got myself into trouble from time to time, and
Needed a good lawyer.
yeah, needed a good lawyer. Well, a couple times, you know, with work and stuff, I would get in a little bit of trouble, and I'd act as my own lawyer and
Yeah. In
and
the military?
advocate for myself. Well, the military and as a firefighter, I was a firefighter for a few years,
Yeah.
and
In New York?
in LaGrange, Georgia.
Wow.
So got out of active duty, became a firefighter, and got a little bit of had some hiccups there.
Yeah.
Nothing that was game changing or life changing, but I ended up defending myself and advocating for myself on something, and I actually ended up advocating for some other people in a similar situation, and got a pretty decent result. Decided from there I wanted to go into law.
Yeah. That is interesting. And where'd you and your wife meet?
Law school.
Law school.
First year of law school. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. At Florida State.
Well, we were at Barry University in Orlando my first year, and then I went to Florida State for my second and third year, and she stayed in Orlando. We did a long distance for a couple of years, and then COVID happened, and her school went remote. She moved up here, and that was all she wrote.
So Panama City, you moved to Panama City during the COVID thing?
It was right at the beginning of COVID, so I took the bar February of 2020. Moved here right after that, and I think COVID started that March.
Yeah.
You know, those shutdowns and everything, March or April,
Yeah.
around that time frame. And she
So what made y'all pick Panama City?
got a job here.
Yeah.
Got a job
Yeah.
here. Out of law school, got offered a job here. You know, I remember it from my partying days in Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah.
So
All of Georgia and Alabama they know where Panama City
yeah.
is.
So
All the college kids in Alabama and Georgia know where Panama City is.
yep, I was among those people that knew
Among
where
those
Panama
people
City was.
that knew, so like in military, any tours during the conflicts or wars or?
Yeah, I did 6 total tours. 2 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, and 2 to Jordan.
What was the tougher environment, Afghanistan or Iraq?
Afghanistan, it was all walking.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of walking, a lot of foot.
It's a less developed country than Iraq.
Less developed country, you know, rugged terrain.
Yeah.
It's mountainous,
Very
at least where we
mountainous,
were.
yeah.
You know, the southern part is more desert, but where we were on the Pac border in the mountains and everything. But it was an adventure.
Yeah.
It was an exciting adventure. I would not trade those experiences for the world.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I can kind of tell, firefighter, Army, kind of a thrill seeker, huh?
We call it, yeah, we joke about it. It's chasing the Reaper.
Chasing the Reaper.
Yep. I ride a motorcycle now.
I bet you that drives your wife crazy, though.
Well, I ride a motorcycle now because I've retired, and I still got to find a way to chase the Reaper.
So, what kind of bike you got?
A Harley.
A Harley.
Yeah.
What model?
It's the Heritage Classic.
The Heritage Classic,
Yeah, I love it.
You have it dressed out with the windshield and all, or you like to ride just wind in your
It
hair?
has a windshield, but I took it off. I don't really ride on the bigger roads. I kind of just cruise at 35, 40 miles per hour, so I don't need the windshield.
I know a lot of motorcycle people. I'm not one of them. Yeah. I'm not one of them, but
gotta have something.
Gotta have something. Yeah. So like your time in the military, you did Iraq and Afghanistan. What do you feel? What do you feel the end of that? I mean, you saw the withdrawal of Afghanistan. I'm not getting into anything political, but I'm saying, do you feel like we made the difference we intended to make over there with those campaigns? When you say Iraq, was it the former or the latter one? It would have been the latter one, I'm sure.
I was in Iraq in 2006, and then I was in Iraq again in 2021.
Yeah.
Two completely different.
So you were there for both of them.
Yeah. So and then I was in Afghanistan in 2009 and 2011.
Yeah.
So I was in surge of Iraq. Yeah. And then I was in very peaceful post war Iraq.
We're one of the few countries that usually when we go, we stay for part of it. Mm-hmm. That's why we've got one of the largest Air Force bases in Germany.
Right.
Because we kept that base. And I was surprised that we didn't keep the air base in either of those places, or am I misunderstanding that? I don't think we've retained control over either one of them.
Yeah, I believe we still have control over Baghdad International.
Baghdad, okay.
I don't believe, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't know specifically that answer. And
I know we don't have the presence that we've left in other places. We've still got troops in Philippines, in Germany, those places. But and I get it that these countries want their sovereignty and all that, and I understand there may be a time we need to get out of the way. But because that part of the world is so troubled, it seemed odd to me that we would leave everything behind like that.
Well, we maintain a huge presence in Jordan.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the foothold from my understanding, to the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't know everything about Middle East politics, but
I
know that our country has made huge investments in those regions, and it is awkward how we go in and sometimes pay a big price and leave there. And I know I come from a military family. My father was in Korea and Vietnam, and I know it changed his life. And how about you? I mean, PTSD and all those kind of things. Were you affected by a lot of that, or do you see a lot of your colleagues and people that you work with are affected adversely by that?
Well, I have a lot of friends that are affected by it, but PTSD manifests itself in many different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, not really knowing the specific science of it and all the literature on it. I mean, I've had friends that had PTSD to where they put themselves back in the location at any given time.
Yeah.
I have friends who their manifestation of PTSD is just being hyper vigilant all the time.
Yeah.
Facing the door at a restaurant or things like that. So PTSD manifests in different ways. I guess there's studies out there, and I wouldn't really know them, that some of it's more chemical, some of it's more brain death associated, and some of it's more mental, unexplainable. So there's many ways that people are affected. PTSD. I think PTSD has kind of become this catch-all for some sort of mental or cerebral reaction to your event and circumstances. And fairly enough, you don't necessarily get PTSD just from a adrenaline-induced circumstance or like some specific incident. There are people who have had PTSD that I've come across that just the stress of being in that constant state of alertness has affected them, and that's PTSD. So,
do you do any veterans law or anything like that?
I don't. There's not. It hasn't seemed like there's much of a call for it up here.
I want to tell you now. My dad, he just passed away a few months ago, but during the last couple of years of his life, I helped him get his veterans benefits. It was a nightmare. I mean, it was awful. and it was just because it's just so much bureaucracy, difficult. It was
Well,
difficult.
what I'll tell you, and there was recently a federal case, I think out of the West somewhere. I'd have to go back and look. I wish I prepared that. But the Court of Federal Claims, I think it was that took it up, which is the federal court that determines like benefits.
Yeah,
There was a guy who got kicked out of the military and dishonorably discharged for a DUI. Well, he got punished for that DUI and he got kicked out. He then went back to try to claim PTSD through the VA. Well, you're not eligible for VA benefits if you've been dishonorably discharged. So he had to get a discharge upgrade. Basically, the Court of Federal Claims more or less found that the alcohol that led him to get the DUI was a byproduct of his PTSD. It was self-treating.
yeah,
And the Court of Federal Claims basically told the Veterans Administration that they have to, or the military, that they have to upgrade his discharge to honorable and treat him for PTSD.
I can see
So
that.
what I'd say, to the extent that this gets out to someone who would be in that situation where they had a less than honorable discharge and don't have their benefits, there now is the door is now open for them to go back and get their discharge upgraded, as long as they can show that connection between
Yeah,
the event that caused them to get the dishonorable discharge and PTSD leading to that.
yeah. Well, I definitely think every veteran should explore every benefit offered to them. My dad waited too long. I mean, he just never would. I don't need any help. I can handle it. I'm okay. But he needed help. And especially towards the end of his life when he was dealing with really, harsh illnesses and stuff, he needed help. And I knew that for him and my mom to be able to survive and live halfway like they were living, he needed help. And getting those benefits, we walked into the Veterans Association and talked to him. The woman basically said, "Where have you been?
Right.
You went to Vietnam and Korea. He got the Bronze Star. He was a military guy." And she said, "How come you haven't come already and got these benefits? You could have been getting them for 20 years. And he just said, "Well, I've taken care of myself. I'm all right." But don't be the tough guy. If you're a veteran, go in there and get the benefits that are afforded to you, because that's what they're for.
There's a stigma around it, right?
Yeah,
It's like you're trying to take advantage of the system,
Yeah.
but
And that was my dad's mentality.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
don't-
don't need any
you know,
help. I can take care of myself. No, you
as
need help.
as a service member, you've been used up a lot. If it's out there and they cause some sort of condition that's lasting, go get your benefit.
Yeah, go get your benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel it's sad that you see veterans struggling without the stuff that's it's for them. That's what it's for. You're not taking advantage of anybody. You're not scamming the system. You served our country, and you deserve the benefit of what they've placed for you. Right. That's a great thing. Well, did you see more action or more danger in being a fireman or being a soldier?
That's perspective. That's a perspective. It's a relative thing.
Yeah.
Right. You're, as a firefighter, you're expected to go into a place that people are trying to escape.
Yeah.
But it's on a limited circumstance. When
Yeah.
you get called out to the fire, you're expected to go in or be on the roof cutting vents.
Yeah.
As a military service member, you're set into a position or an environment where people want to cause you harm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion, so that was special operations and
Dangerous stuff. Everything the Rangers do is dangerous
but
stuff.
the guys you are with are the best of the best,
They're
the
the
top
best
of their
of the
game.
best.
So
Yeah.
You're with the guys that know the job. So
Yeah.
do I think one is more dangerous than the other? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the whole Ranger thing's fascinating. I think that when you take firefighting and being an Army Ranger, now you're in the courtroom. Is the courtroom more dangerous than what's your biggest challenge when you're in the courtroom? Is it staying in line with the judge, trying to find that part where he's listening to you and you're making your point? Because what I think about, I've got a daughter that's an attorney, And what a lot of attorneying is communication. Your ability to communicate, this is what I understand the problem is, but it's not your understanding or your client's understanding, it's that judge's understanding. Right. That's who has got to understand your side of it.
You have to fashion, that's a huge challenge, is you have to fashion your story in a way that it catches the judge.
Yeah.
Or the other lawyer if you're negotiating, or the other party. Yeah. And even your client. You know, your client might see it one way and they're aggrieved, you know, they're hurt. If a person comes to a lawyer, they have been in trouble. Yeah. People don't take that lightly. And the clients can often see it in one way. And it's a hard thing to get a person to see the story in a light that brings that story out the best. Because that's ultimately what it is. It's you're applying a story which could be fiction, like in any of these books, and trying to make it match with the letter of the law.
The letter of the law. Yeah. No matter how hurt you are or offended you are, it's just going to be law in the courtroom.
And then the other challenge, you know, the big challenge is you're dealing with humans, right? Yeah. Humans have desires, they have experiences, they have personalities, they have cultural upbringings. You don't know at what time and what day you are going to present the story that reminds them of something bad or something good. So you find yourself, your case may be open and shut as far as you see it. But there is just something in that case that causes a judge or a jury to just not agree or find some way out of agreeing with you. Yeah. You know, I read there's a book, it's a persuasion science. And one of the big things I've learned from that and tried to apply is when you're trying to persuade someone to agree with you, there's two sides of their brain that are working, the logical and the emotional. If you can persuade them emotionally to be in your corner, they're going to find a way logically to justify that emotion.
Yeah.
The same doesn't hold true if you try to get them logically first and then pull the emotion side.
Yeah.
So a big part of arguing that I try to use is try to catch a person's emotions, try to find what makes them tick, and then follow it up with the logical reasoning.
That's interesting. It really is, because a lot of churches, what you're doing in church is you are tapping into the emotion, because, you know, we say it all the time, we want to deal with your heart. We want to deal with your heart, because if you change a man's heart, you change a man's life. Right. You know, and that's what it comes to.
I don't know if you've read A Case for Christ.
I have not.
It is this journalist, I think in the 70s or 80s. He ended up becoming a pastor. But he was an agnostic, did not believe at all.
Oh, I've not read the book,
but I know some of this book. Yes. There's a movie about it. And he basically, logically, he could not believe that there was such a thing as Jesus. Yeah. So he does all the legwork to try to research and everything. And he comes to the logical conclusion that Jesus must have existed. Emotionally, he didn't want to get there, but he did.
Yeah.
And now after that, everything was, you know.
Absolutely. I've never read the book, but I do know the story you're talking about. That's powerful. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you ready to connect your organization with an audience that is eager for inspiration? The My Big Comeback podcast, hosted by John R. Ramsey, shares powerful stories of resilience and redemption, featuring guests who have turned life setbacks into major comebacks. New episodes drop the 1st and 15th of every month. For those interested in being a part of this community, sponsorship opportunities are now available. To learn more, contact Meredith Cobb at meredithcobbhwc@gmail.com. Let's make a big comeback together.
Hey, this is John Ramsey with My Big Comeback. I'm here talking to Matthew Goldhagen. He and his wife are attorneys here in Bay County. And I like his term that he uses. He mostly practices street law. And I like that. People come off the street, they have a problem, and they're dealing with things. When we left before break, we were talking about the emotional side of law. And it's really not the emotional side of law, it's the emotional side of people. You know, people, that's the biggest door into anyone's life is their emotion. But what they've got to do, what you've got to do, is take that emotion and turn it into the guidelines of the law, which, the law can be kind of rigid. I know some people don't feel like, I'm thinking of, and I know this is a big case that you're not involved in, but I'm thinking of what they just did with the Idaho murders, with those 4 precious students that were murdered and in their dorm or their apartment or whatever. And I know, I was watching the news, the parents get their chance to say their day in court and stuff. None of that fixes anything. Because when you've lost your child, there's nothing that can be done in a courtroom that's going to fix the hurt that you're feeling. And, I tell people sometimes that, when we talk about justice, we're talking about man's justice. God's justice is a whole different level, because we're not able to offer each other justice. If you killed my child, for me to have justice, I would have to kill your child to make it even. That's not possible. Doesn't fix anything, and it still wouldn't bring my child back. So there's a degree of loss that people go through that can't be fixed by the court. And when you see terribly tragic things like someone's child being murdered, someone losing their life, there is no fixing it. So what happens in those situations? I mean, I know they don't get what they want, but I've heard it. What was the movie with Michael Keaton in it about the World Trade Centers, where he's talking about putting an amount of money on each life? Well, I forget the name of the movie, but it was interesting because people kept telling him these terrible stories. I lost my wife, I lost my husband, I lost my child, and he was on the lawyer accountant side of it. Was, I know you did, and there's nothing that's going to happen tomorrow that's going to fix that, but we're going to try to get you this amount. How does that play into things? I mean, like when you're talking about personal injury, how do they come up with these figures?
Well, I actually don't do personal injury, so I don't know very much. I can't really speak intelligently on that. It's the law attempts to fashion a remedy to put you back in the position that you were before the wrong happened. And of course, the law isn't perfect. It's changing every day. It's being interpreted differently every day. It's being reversed every day. I mean, we look into some of those seminal cases, Loving versus Virginia. In Virginia, they had a law where you couldn't intermarry between races.
Yeah.
How do you fix that person's life? You don't.
Yeah.
That was obviously reversed later on. It was the Loving did reverse that statute. But think about how many people before were living against the law in a state of marriage interracial.
Yeah.
So the law really, I don't believe the law is there to fix the wrong. I think it is there to redress the injury and attempt to put the party in a position that close enough to a position that it would have been had the wrong not occurred.
Yeah.
And all you can really do is, as the client comes to me, all I can really do is present what those injuries are and try to present a story to the judge that would get that person back into a position.
Yeah. Listen, we were talking about reading a little while ago. Do all lawyers just read John Grisham?
I don't read any John Grisham.
I love John Grisham. He's great. I like all those legal dramas.
I am a purely nonfiction reader.
Okay, tell me what you read.
Well, I read about Afghanistan, Iraq. I read spies,
just historical
CIA
stuff.
Yep, I kind of rotate between Afghanistan.
Have you ever read The Devil's Chessboard?
I have not.
Okay, it's a story about Alan Dulles, who was leader of the CIA for many, many, many years. And I didn't realize him and his brother were both, his brother that was also involved in government work. But of course, it's a super negative book about him.
I think his brother was a federal prosecutor and may have been the attorney general.
They were both in the highest levels of government. But the book is really negative about how the CIA manipulated things. A lot of times for personal business, for corporations and different stuff. Really yucky, really makes you think, Is anything right? Is anything real? And of course, there's a lot of disputes saying that that's not accurate, and he's said this because he was bitter about some things or whatever. But he was right there at the top during the Kennedy assassination and different stuff, and a lot of questions about the question mark with the Kennedy assassination is always, was the CIA involved, and was it part of a government plot? Which I guess we'll never actually know, or maybe we will. I don't. A lot of things change in these days that I never thought would change. But the thing is, that's interesting stuff. It really is. Yeah. You like that kind of stuff?
I love that kind of stuff, and I think reading the good with the bad.
Yeah, I read it all.
Is necessary.
Yes.
Maybe you take something with a grain of salt, whether good or bad, but understanding the good and the bad is also understanding what makes people tick.
Yeah. Well, I talked about this with Holly Melzer that was on one of our first shows. It doesn't matter. Even all the way up to the Supreme Court, these are people, and people are influenced. So you have to look at the people making these decisions. They have influences in their life, and so it does matter. And the thing is, the law is not perfect. It's interpreted by people. It's influenced by people. And what you're seeing now with changes in government and all those things that were never opened up before being opened up. But, you have to ask yourself, do we want all that opened up? And it's not going to change. It's already happened. But the thing is, like, you go back through, if we absolutely knew the parts of the Kennedy assassination, who was involved in it, whatever, or if there was anybody involved in it, what would it change? What would it make different? And I think you come out of the story non-trusting. You don't trust government like you once did.
Well, I think good people use information for good. Bad people use information for bad. That's been the case throughout the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And it takes good people to use that information for good to defend against the bad.
Yeah.
I don't think we withhold information to protect.
Yeah.
I think withholding information does the opposite of protecting.
So you think everything should be available for everyone to know?
Within certain confines, but big public issues.
Yeah, I do too.
Pull the curtain back.
I think you ought to lay all the cards on the table and we just deal with what's there, But it is kind of creepy to think about the backroom deals and things that are happening on an international level between countries that we don't know, And I think a lot of times people are, I like the show The Diplomat. Have you seen that on Netflix?
I think
it's really a neat show because it shows that while the headlines are up here, this is what you're seeing. There's just two people meeting in a back room that nobody even knows they're there, actually making the decision. And this is what we've shown you, but this is not what that's about.
And I think in those scenarios, the two people, it's necessary for the two people to do that.
Yeah,
because if we have the public discourse getting involved in that, then those deals never get made.
They never get made. And I think you see that a lot of times with the big conflicts, even in our community, whether it's a walking path or whether it's a city in dispute or whatever, it's going to come down to a few people making a decision because the rhetoric on both sides just gets so big that it gets so messy. It's a million different opinions, and you can't go off a million different opinions.
Right.
Somebody has got to have their hands on the steering wheel.
Make a decision.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of what it comes to. I've asked previous legal guests, Judge Grammer and some of them that were on here, what's it come down to with this? Who's in control, the Congress, the Supreme Court, or the president? And I think we're finding on a lot of these issues that have been ruled on in the past few months that the president has a lot of decision-making power. It really does. I think the latest thing within this last week was they ruled that he does have the right to shut down some of these agencies. And they're screaming about it. All these Congress people are screaming about it. But he's the president. If he decides, I don't want the Kennedy Center to do this anymore, I want him to do that, he's the president.
Well, executive actions move quickly.
Yeah.
Legislature moves slowly, and courts move even slower than that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would necessarily agree that the president has all the power he has. In the public forum, we see this because the courts are behind and have to catch up. The legislature's behind and has to catch up. We may see in the coming months that the courts catch up.
Yeah.
The legislature catches up and starts to rein in some of that power. But what we see is Trump makes a decision, goes with it, and that's that. I mean, this happened with antitrust litigation pretty recently. The executive branch passed a rule saying, or it asserted a rule saying that private employers cannot require their employees to sign non-competes. And that took about 4 or 5 months for the courts to say, no, FTC, you can't reach into a private employer and tell them what they can and can't do when in regards to non-competes.
Yeah.
So it took a few months, but, you know, in my office, I got a whole bunch of calls from people who signed non-competes saying they wanted to get out of. And I had to belay those for a little while and say, I don't think this is going to hold up.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, you know, Judge Grammer was talking to me about during COVID, where the health department and CDC was making rules like you can't evict somebody. And then he's got all these landlords in front of him saying, this person needs to get out of my house. They're not paying anymore. And he was put in the awkward position of, I can't go by what the CDC says. I mean, they're not Congress. They're not a legislature, you know. And so it came down to the thing of, we're in a health crisis. Who makes the rules in a health crisis? Well, it turns out the Congress still does, the legislature. Same thing in, you know, we're in a national security crisis. Can I do this, this, and this? Well, you can, but we don't want to get in a situation where every president changes all the rules.
Right.
Well, executive order time, change all these rules. Next 4 years, executive order time, change all the rules. It's going to be a lot of confusion, you know. So hopefully the legislature makes some hardline rules, and hopefully the court makes some decisions that says, look, this is how this is going to go. You know, you can do this, but you can't do this, you know. Even things like deporting people and stuff like that. I mean, there's got to be some due process. There's got to be, you know, there's got to be some guidelines to go by.
I'm reading a book called Overruled right now.
Yeah.
And it is basically about the legislature passing law about everything.
Yeah.
And how we are operating in our normal day-to-day lives. And we're probably breaking some law somewhere because we just have so much legislation.
Your window tint's too dark, or you've got a prescription that's run out of date.
So it's, you know, it's an interesting book that if you are interested in that kind of topic, you know, where do we stop making law versus where do we make law? It makes a pretty compelling argument that we have too much law.
I mean, this actually came up today because I was reading a post from one of the, I think it was the News Herald or one of them, that was talking about them putting a no smoking or passing a law that's against the law to smoke in one of the city parks. And I think the conclusion they came to was, let's not pass another law. I mean, laws got to be policed. They've got to be prosecuted. It's just creating more work. And let's just put up signs that say, please don't smoke in the park, or please don't smoke around other families, and see if 99% of people just go by the sign. Because if you pass a law, you've created a whole bunch of work. I mean, someone's got to police it, someone's got to prosecute it, a judge has got to hear it.
A lawyer's got to prosecute or defend it.
Are we creating things that are just, I believe in overruled. I mean, I'm a big states' rights person.
Right.
So I believe that a lot of what's being argued on the federal level should have been taken care of on the state level. Right. You know, and we should be able to say, you know, the closest to the problem is always the best answer, because they understand, you know, the people in Colorado have different issues.
Right.
So,
culturally, Floridians are different, much different than Montanians.
Yeah, Montanians.
You know, we have different belief systems. You know, to our core, we're probably, you know, very similar, but you know, there's specific things, small things that make us very different from someone in the Pacific Northwest, and make us very different from someone who lives in cattle country in Oklahoma. You know?
Well, I heard a statistic one time that, you know, we, in the last 50 years, crime has not increased, but the reporting of crime has increased 10,000%. You know, because we're hearing about a problem in Montana, so we think we need to solve it. It's not our problem. We don't. You know, whatever they're doing in Montana is not affecting my family. So I don't, well, we need to pass a law here because you heard what happened in Montana. Well, we don't need to pass a law here because we heard what happened in Montana. Montana's just going to have to take care of itself. I'm going to take one more break. I'll be back in just a minute.
Heroes Child is a nonprofit organization that is on a mission to help community heroes with the everyday cost of childcare. We know that heroes like our military personnel, first responders, and foster families need care for their children. Heroes Child awards these families scholarships that go to help pay their childcare tuition. Use the QR code on the screen to donate now or visit heroeschild.org today.
Hello, this is John Ramsey. I'm here with Matthew Goldhagen. He's an attorney here in Bay County, him and his wife both. And we were talking about law, and we were talking about states' rights and all that. When we get into these things, talking about different laws, different places, I think as a rule, the less law, the better. I mean, would you agree?
Yes and no, depends on what it is. Classic lawyer answer is depends.
Yeah.
Some things need to be very controlled, very detailed.
Yeah.
And then there are other things that don't need to be controlled and
Yeah.
detailed. The law is there to guide people, guide principles, guide ethics, guide lifestyles.
Yeah. Well, like the whole HOA thing. I mean, I get it. I've got some friends in Texas. Texas has, to have any kind of HOA, it's got to be a very defined, very small place, because there's something about their mentality as Texans is I'm in Texas, I can do what I want. Mm-hmm. So if the guy next door wants to cover his house with hubcaps, the only way you can escape that guy moving next door to you is you've got to get in a very defined, very precise HOA, which they have them in Texas, but they're not a big fan of them. Right. They like people to have their rights, which that's what you got to deal with. If you're saying I don't want any rules, I want to be able to park my car where I want to, paint my grass blue if I want to, that's fine when it's you. But when your neighbor does something obnoxious, you've got to live with it.
You live with the good and the bad.
Yeah.
You live with, you want to, and I tend to agree with the states' rights things, because if I don't like the way my state is dealing with the hubcap house, move to a state that deals with a hubcap house. If I don't like how my state sees taxi cabs, move to a state that sees it differently.
I saw something with that with New York. They really fight against the Uber Lyft thing because of the taxi cab association there. New York's the biggest taxi cab city in the world.
Right.
So of course they fought the Uber Lyft thing, but I don't think they're winning, because people's pocketbooks, are making that decision for them. And a lot of people vote with their pocketbook. They vote with their attendance. I tell pastors all the time that the biggest way your people vote is they don't come. If they don't like the church, they won't come to it. So you've got to get to somewhat give the people what they want, and at the same time stay true to your convictions. And I think a lot of times, I'm a big capitalist, so I believe that capitalism weeds out the weaker, lesser product. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, and as long as it's somewhat fair, I know the whole monopoly ideal is if someone knows everything, there's no way for anyone to compete with them. But you see things like Amazon. Amazon is taking over the world. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? It's a good thing that I can buy this coffee cup for cheap, but it's a bad thing if at some point no one else sells coffee cups, so I don't have a choice. I got to pay $100 for it because it's the only one for sale. It can push out small business. It can push out small business. So there's some regulations good, but it's a fine line. I mean, can you overdoing it? Mm-hmm. I like the idea of overruled, huh? Yeah. Have you read there's a book called, I think it's 51 Constitutions or 51 Bills, or it talks about, it's a states' rights book, and it's about the little mini constitutions that every state has. Mm-hmm. That really, it's almost set up like, I tell people all the time, the Navajo Nation. If you go out west, the big Indian reservations, the big native reservations that they created when they stole the land from the indigenous people, when they pushed them out on those reservations, the one thing they did right is they made those reservations sovereign nations. So like if you're on the Navajo reservation in Arizona and New Mexico, the Constitution doesn't apply.
Have their own
To
law.
even walk on there, you have to be a federal marshal because the law doesn't apply. They have their own law. And I find that's interesting that most people don't know that we have a nation within our nation. You know, those actually exist. But it's interesting. I mean, how does that work? I mean, it's interesting stuff, you know.
It's a delicate balance.
It is a delicate
But that's,
balance.
that's life. Everything's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
What am I going to eat for dinner? Am I going to eat something fatty? Am I going to eat something healthy? Everything's a delicate balance. It affects us going forward. You know, we make that healthy choice. We make that unhealthy choice. We make the choice to break the law intentionally.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
you speed, you intentionally break the law. And
I have a saying that says you cannot legislate righteousness.
Right.
And that doesn't mean people hear me say, oh, well, you got to have some law. I'm not saying not to have any law. I'm saying no matter whether you pass a law or not, you can't make everyone do that. They've got to choose to do that. And so the idea is, in my line of work, is changing hearts. Because if a person's heart is right and changed, you know, you don't have to say, I didn't have to pass a law today and say, well, you know, for this weekend, Matthew, you can kill anyone you want to, you know, like purge or whatever. You know, well, you know, that's you passing a law saying I can kill somebody. It's not what stops me from killing people. What stops me from killing people is I love people, and I wouldn't want to kill anybody.
back to what I said, the good people are going to do good things, and bad people are going to do bad things.
Yeah. My dad used to say that locks are for honest people. You know, a thief is going to break a lock anyway.
Right.
The lock doesn't matter. The honest guy says, oh, this is locked. I don't need to go in there. The thief says, oh, it's locked. I need to break in there, you know, because something valuable behind that door. So,
And of course, there are good people that make mistakes. Doesn't
Yeah,
make them bad
yeah.
people. But yeah, I mean, there's that balance everywhere in the world. And I guess, you know, to the point, the legislature is trying to find that balance.
yeah, yeah,
And in some cases, maybe it goes past that line of balancing. In some cases, maybe it doesn't go enough to the balancing line.
Yeah.
People are imperfect. People have emotions.
yeah, they do. And it does make a difference. Let me talk about the personal side of Matthew Goldhagen just a second. What's on Matthew's bucket list? What's some things you'd like to do that you hadn't done yet?
I think travel to Europe for a good amount of time and really see some of those historical sites, ancient sites. You know, I'm really into, as we talked about, nonfiction. So I read a lot of history. You know, everything throughout history. I read a lot of some religion. Of course, religion and history are very
Yeah,
intertwined.
there's always been faith.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've already done the I forget what they call it, the walk that Jesus Christ did to 12 Stations of the Cross.
Yeah.
I went to Israel and I've already done that, so that's off the bucket
That's
list.
cool. Well, yeah, well, especially with your military service, you've seen a lot of the Middle East.
And a lot of those ancient sites, they're amazing. You know, people are amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing that it's survived all this
Mm-hmm.
time. You know, when you talk about the things in Greece and
Not only that
Jerusalem,
it's survived, that people have caused it to survive.
Yes, yes.
Have preserved it,
preserved it.
intentionally
Yeah,
preserved it.
yeah. That's amazing. It is. So, like, you'd like to see Europe. What's some interesting places you've been to here in the U.S.? I mean, being from New York, you've seen the Northeast, Boston, all that kind of area.
Well, I love DC.
I love DC.
Love DC.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a little, you know, too much city for me nowadays. But
Well, you know what I was surprised at? I mean, I spent 2 days there, saw all kinds of stuff, and didn't scratch the surface. I mean, there's so much to see in DC. I could spend 2 weeks just in the museums.
right, just
You know, because they're gigantic. You know, I think everyone should go to DC. What surprised me the most on my trip to DC was George Washington's house. You know, the Mount Vernon thing and all it was amazing. You know, just to think that they preserved his house, you know, and kept it there. It's amazing. And they were working on it while I was there. And what they were saying was they're constantly going around it, repairing it, you know, just to keep it as original as possible and to keep it from deteriorating more. Of course, it's built on the water there and on the river, the Potomac and all that. So it fights the elements and it's like, come on. I mean, how long can you keep it there? It's amazing. It's amazing the work that's done.
yeah.
Yeah. What part of New York is your favorite part? What borough?
Well, I went to high school in the Bronx, New York. Parts of that are probably, Little Italy, where the food is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a big food guy.
Yeah, Little Italy. That's amazing. Best food in the world.
Yeah, it's
best food in
amazing.
the world.
Yep.
I mean, that you can get any kind of cuisine you want, and it'd be as close to if you're eating in that country as you could be. Yeah.
And then Manhattan's nice. I don't know that I necessarily need to run back
Yeah.
there anytime soon, but
Have you been in the new Millennial Tower and all that?
no, I've not.
It's amazing.
Been to the new Yankee Stadium. though.
Yeah,
That's what's
yeah.
important to me.
Yeah, Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I guess bucket list would be to go to all Major League Baseball
stadiums,
stadiums.
yeah.
Love baseball.
What's
Our
your
family
team?
loves it. Yankees.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. I was kind of holding back, thinking, no, don't say it. But yeah, that's great. Yankees, that's right. That's hometown. Hometown team, huh?
Yep, used to go to the games on on an any day. When old Yankee Stadium, they used to separate the bleacher creatures from the regular paying fans, and it was like $5 to get in.
Yeah.
So
You think they've lost all that? Have baseball become too commercialized?
no, I don't think so. I actually like what baseball's been doing with the game. It's kind of speeding up.
Yeah.
You don't spend 4.5 hours watching a pitcher kick dirt around the mound for 45 seconds at a time.
Yeah, and you know what? I love watching on TV now. They've got the strike box and all that, which to me it just enhances watching it. I mean, it's great.
And the camera angles these days. I mean, you can see the spin on the ball.
Yeah, the speed of the camera's amazing. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, I watched a report one time, and I don't know if it's believable or not, but this Little League coach, would write a word on just one place, write a word on the ball, and have the pitcher pitch it, and he would tell the batter that you need to tell me what word was on that ball that just came by you. And so I'm thinking, how in the world could you know? But these kids, the idea was he didn't really care whether they happened to be able to read it or not.
Focus on
it. was focus. If you're staring so hard at the ball that you're trying to read the word coming at you, you're focused on the ball, and that's what's going to make you hit the ball. Coaching tip even this morning. Listen, so I've enjoyed it today. 45 minutes on my show passes like that. I could talk about law. I could talk about travel all day long, and I appreciate having you on. What was the Overruled? Who was the author?
I don't remember.
I'm going to look it up because I'm going to read it. I love stuff like that.
Well, I got it at the office if you want to come by and get it.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. I love stuff like that. I probably need to talk to your wife sometime because criminal law is super interesting. No Grisham at all. You don't read any of it.
I don't. She reads fiction. If I'm going to spend time reading a book, I want to learn something from it.
I love it. I could talk to you all day. Thank you for talking with me on My Big Comeback. Thank you.
Appreciate it.